we're going to present a project at the Melbourne Park Sports Precinct. It's called Centrepiece, and we think it's a major contribution to Melbourne. And I'll go through in the quick time we've got as to why we think that's an important thing. It is, in fact, the only, dare I say, non-sports project in the Melbourne Sports Precinct. It's called Centrepiece, but it's also under our working title. It's called the Function Media Broadcast Centre, because in the end, it is a multidextrous building. It deals with the public functions, it deals with media, and it deals with broadcasting. So it's one of those examples of public architecture in Melbourne that is cross-dimensional, and we'll talk about that. This was a slide that we actually presented in our tender competition to win the project, which is, we are talking about a project. Here is the building, but here is the broader concept we had, which is, given we've been working down there for 10 years in master planning capacity, it's the idea of flow and engagement, that people should be able to come from Flinders Street Station, Birrarung Marr, Richmond train station, MCG, wherever you come, you should be able to connect into this space. And if we make this space public and engaged with the life of Melbourne, then I think we've been, well, we think we might have been successful. So on the right, you see an image of the Australian Open where the population really do enjoy all the landscape space and all the work we've done down there. So here's an image of the work. It's, as I say, nearly 10 years in completion. Function Media Centre sits in the middle. We were the architects for the Margaret Court Arena and the new Show Court Arena, which I think we'll talk about later this morning. But it's really talking about the fact that this is a legacy project. You know, you're talking, I don't want to get commercial here, but you're talking about $1.3 billion of government infrastructure investment. So for Melbourne, and this is the pride of the world, because the French, particularly the Americans, even Wimbledon, all their facilities are just miles out of the city. And they cannot believe we actually have this in the middle of the city, 2 minutes walk from the station. And I guess this is just a bit of a throwback. This is an image and it's pixelated because it is an actual, dare I say, picture, like a printed out picture that I was given by, I'm being recorded, so I have to be careful, by a previous premier who said, don't fuck it up. Well, it's a pretty clear instruction for an architect. So we spent quite a lot of time making sure we didn't fuck it up, but it does show that, you know, in the last 20 years, 30 years, it's an amazing transformation of the space. So Centrepiece, it is a civic project. We see it as being an important contribution. There's lots of peacocks in the sports precinct. There's lots of arenas with white steel and roofs and, you know, but this was really trying to be a contribution to the civic public nature of the space, and for Melburnians to use it in a number of different ways. It sits in the middle of the site, so it is fundamentally incredibly important in the space because it controls that flow conversation we had earlier. You can really feel its centrality in that space. I guess the other thing is it's about Melbourne. And here you can see they do literally write Melbourne on the court. So I guess from our point of view, there's the physical nature of the space. People actually do, you know, come to the tournament. They do watch tennis. They do go to functions. They do go and do this. But there's also the global dimension. So to put that into numbers, there's about 700,000 people actually visit the site during the Australian Open and other things. 22 million look at it through digital platforms. So you can see in this particular case, I think they're called the Special Ks, Kokkinakis and Kyrgios. Melbourne is in the background. So I guess part of the ongoing conversation about urban design is twofold. There's the physical aspect of people actually visiting the project, visiting the precinct, visiting the building. But when you look at that, 700,000 people is a lot, but 22 million people visiting it digitally, you go, that's quite a lot as well. So I guess there's an evolving conversation about how Melbourne represents itself to the global community. But at another level, it's about participation. This is in fact an image Well, we've got a few, but the idea of the function room is it's available to everyone, from Brownlow Medal corporate, high school conferences, all of it. So it's really trying to say, let's create a new space for Melbourne. And I think the other key driver for us was Melbourne is a great city and it needs to be seen. So this is indoor, outdoor. You're in the building and you actually get to see Garden Square. The lemon-scented gums are beautiful. They smell amazing, but you can see the city as well. So it's trying to stop this, dare I say, conventional idea of sports architecture and civic buildings being closed. This is about, we need to be engaged with the landscape. We need to be engaged with the public space. We need to feel like Melbourne's weather gets a little bit of a bad rap. So we were like, no, let's make sure we actually engage with the outside. So for us, this was an incredibly important component to the project. Community, it is, as I say, this is a conversation about Melbourne. And during the year, the facility has Wiggles concerts, Andre Rieu concerts, Bruce Springsteen concerts. So it's a multi-dimensional space. But the Australian Open is clearly the pinnacle of that. Here's an image of Serena Williams, who unfortunately didn't win. But you just have to look at that image and go, that is a lot of people engaging in the space. So for us, that is the driving force of the project. And the final one, which to be honest, we are proud of, we do have the most equitable precinct in the world. We are, well, again, without being too behind the scenes, we've had visitations from the Flushing Meadows team in New York, the Wimbledon team in London, even Roland Garros, going, you have set a new benchmark for equitableness in terms of access, universal design, and that is not just from travel, it's to do with toilets, it's to do with, I can go on for hours in boringness, but for us, that is an incredibly important contribution. And again, unfortunately, Dylan didn't win, but he's been a huge advocate, along with the rest of our team, that this is absolutely world-class benchmark in equitable space. So
1 minute remaining. Thank you.
Well, I think that's it. So I'm happy to take questions. I can give an extra minute to questions.